Hi, I'm Kale Kettle and welcome to this week's The Book Chain Project. This week, Georgia Bowers is interviewing Emma Mylrea, whose debut novel, The Curse of the Dearmad, is out now. Don't forget that this is season 1 of the Book Chain Project. You can apply to be part of season 2, which is going to happen next year. That's 2022, and the details are down below. I look forward to seeing you after the interview. Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, I'm now live. I have to take these off, don't I? Otherwise you can see the rings in my glasses. How is everyone? We're just waiting for the lovely Emma. Oh, here she's coming. I can see hello, she's just waved. I am just sitting in the quietest place in my house, which is the hallway. So I feel like I'm on detention, which is a bit strange. While we wait for Emma, I will introduce myself. I am Georgia Bowers, author of Mark of the Wicked, which was published yesterday, and which is why I drank a whole bottle of champagne yesterday, rather stupidly. But I'm looking forward to talking to Emma. Just wait a little, I'm sure she's on her way here. Hello, kitty, hello. Any questions for me while we're waiting? I can answer Buffy questions, season 1 to 3. That's my specialist subject. Oh, here we go, right. Here we are.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Emma. I'm good. How are you? Have you found a quiet corner as well?
Yeah, the only quiet. Well, we're not at home. We're on holiday.
Oh.
So I'm hoping that this is a good spot for Wi-Fi. I think it is. I think I'm okay.
Super. Well, I can hear you okay and everything.
Good.
So that's fine. So we'll get stuck into it. We're just going to have a little chat. I'll let you introduce your book and things in a minute. Just so people know, we're recording this, so we won't be answering questions and saying hello to the comments and things. Also, there might be some spoilers, but I don't want to get too spoilery because I just want people to read the book. So, but just in case. So, Emma, I will just hand straight over to you, and if you want to tell us a little bit about your wonderful book.
Oh, thanks, Georgia. Well, it's a middle grade. I think it's magical realism because it's firmly set in the real world, but based on something that's very unreal. It's about it's a story about a family who live in a world where some people can live underwater. They're called gillies. And some people are just your average person who doesn't live underwater. And we follow the family, the Shearwater family, who they have a set of twins, and one twin has inherited gills and the other hasn't. And it's a hard life for gillies because if there isn't exact perfect balance in nature for them, they find it hard to survive. And so we follow a journey of trying to find an elixir that will make that balance easier for them to, so they find it easier to live in the world that we occupy. And they go on an adventure because the twins' mother is quite poorly, and because she's a gilly, and they think that there is something that they can get. They're not sure, but they think there's something they can get to make her life better. And secretly, not secretly, but the children also hope that it'll make their lives better as well. So they go on this journey and encounter all sorts of problems along the way. I'm not very good at talking about my book because I know it so well. And I get into a zone where I just assume everybody else knows it and nobody knows what I'm talking about. But there's a sea adventure. There are sharks. There are octopus. There's a cursed cave. There's loss of memory. Yeah. There's discovering a new paradise island, and then there's the journey home as well if they get that far. Mm-hmm. So it's a proper journey.
Yeah, it's got everything, hasn't it? So just jumping right in, where did you come up with this idea for gillies and this whole underwater thing?
I think it was like it was a perfect storm, really. When I wanted to write, and I was thinking of stories, and it was when my children were really little, and I wanted to make a story that would be for them. And we were spending a lot of time thinking about and going to the Isle of Man, because that's where my husband's from, and just experiencing sea life and being on the beach and being part of a sea community. But also thinking back, because it's hard to remember because you start books so long before they actually get published.
Yeah.
But thinking back, my children were really, really obsessed with Ponyo, Ghibli film, when they were about 2. And that's when I started writing it. And I think they loved everything sea. We used to go to the aquarium, watch Ponyo, we're going to the Isle of Man. Everything seemed to me about the sea. And I've always loved the sea and been interested in it. But I think it didn't come to me as a fully formed idea. I just started to write. And I kind of like magpie little ideas from places and little experiences that we'd had. And also, there's part of the book is about loss of memory, which I find really interesting. This is proper geek territory, but I was obsessed with Labyrinth when I was little.
Wow.
Used to watch it all the time.
Yeah.
And one of my favourite bits is when she starts to lose her memory. And that always stuck with me. I thought it was a really interesting kind of idea, and it felt very dangerous. So I was kind of playing with that as well. It's when you think back as a writer, you think about all the things that inform your ideas. I mean, you'll know this too. There's so many little things that you pick up here and there that just kind of evolve into a story that you build and a world that you build. So there's loads of little bits that like thinking back now, I can piece it together where I've got all these things from. But it wasn't just one event.
No.
Didn't go to sea life and just
start writing. That would be nice, wouldn't it? The bit that you're talking about with the memory and when that's all starting, because it's quite dark. We mentioned this before, didn't we, when we had a chat before? There's parts of it that are quite dark, and it's funny you say about Labyrinth, because I hadn't thought of that, but now you say it, there is that part in that where she, as you say, it's quite unsettling. And it is with them as well, and they're children. I think that's why it's so unsettling. But it made me think of Neverending Story 2, and it was a really sort of creepy feeling. So I think it's really clever the way that you've done that, and just how you don't really know quite what's happening straight away. Creepy
was something that I was going for, because I think children like to be a little bit scared but know that they're safe. And also I think when they're reading as well, they like to see children empowered. So all the adults in my story, I feel like I've tried to make them rounded characters, but at the same time I've tried to make them pretty useless, because I think children like it when the adults are dithering and they can make decisions and they can drive the action. So that's something I had in my mind. I wanted the children to lead the charge. But yeah, it does get quite dark. And I remember when I first met the guys at Tiny Tree, and I was desperate to ask them what had jumped out, why my book, why were they interested in publishing my book? And James was great. He just said, yeah, it's really dark, and it's a bit weird. I thought, okay, he gets me. That's good.
Well, that's good. There was some bits where, because I am probably least comfortable in the water. That's like, the water makes me feel very nervous. So there were some bits of the book where I was just like, my heart was going, and I was just like, I just want this to be over. This is really scary. And of course, worrying so much for them as well, and just thinking, because I really didn't know which way it was going to go and who ended up kind of stepping up and being the hero. I thought that was so clever what you did with the characters, because I didn't expect that at all, and it was really refreshing to see the way that you did it. So they were they were fine in the end, so
Yeah.
I could stop worrying. But yeah, there were some bits where it felt quite claustrophobic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's something I tried to do, to kind of get people on the edge of their seat a little bit.
Yes.
Although, yeah, there are moments of levity, but yeah, it gets quite serious about halfway through, and then it gets very serious again later on.
It does, because you kind of think, you get to a point, you think, oh, okay, well, everything's all right now, and you're like, oh no, actually, we've got a little bit further to go on the journey yet.
Yeah.
So yeah. So when is the book officially out?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
So I think if anyone's pre-ordered, they might get it sooner.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sorry. So what are you enjoying most about being published so far?
I'm looking forward to going into a bookshop and seeing my book. But I think because it's such a long process, and I don't know if this is the experience that you've had, but I kind of forget sometimes, and then somebody will say to me, "Oh wow, that's amazing! Yeah, I'm going to read it." And you think, "Oh yeah, people will read it." But I've got quite blasé about it, and like, oh yeah, it's just that thing I've got to do, and on to the next thing. But I do like it when other people are impressed, because it's kind of a hard. I think everybody's got a story in them, but actually sitting down to write it and sticking with it and putting up with rejections and sticking with it after that, and then getting a publishing contract, and then waiting for it to, doing the editing. It's a really long process. So anybody who's got an idea of that process, when they say to you, oh, that's an achievement, it kind of reminds you that it is.
Yeah, and I think, just as you said, even writing a whole book is amazing. As you said, people don't always sit down and finish a book. So to get that far, and then to actually get published, and as you say, people will be reading your book, holding it in their hands. So yeah.
I haven't had any, big reviews or even feedback from young readers yet. So I'm looking forward. I know some children in my school are likely to read it. So I'm looking forward to having feedback from children. I think that's what I'm looking forward to most.
Yeah, and that will be lovely, to actually get the feedback from them, from your audience, rather than thinking, oh, shall I look on NetGalley, or shall I, I'll just peek and just see what the top one's like, and then, so it will be really nice for you to actually be able to chat to the children who've read your book, and they can tell you what they think about it. That'd be lovely. Yeah, something to look forward to. So when you started writing it, did you do a lot of research?
Well, I got a copy of Breviton. Is it Breviton's Nautical Curiosities, which it's a kind of obscure book, but it's brilliant. It's like an almanac of just weird sea stuff, and a lot of Otto's vocabulary was informed after I read that. Because Otto is a character in the book who's an old seafaring sailor, come fisherman, come pirate.
Big cuddly teddy bear as well, isn't he? Really,
he's lovely. So I did research into him a lot, and then things came up here and there that I had to research. And one of the things was, I've got a family friend who is a marine biologist, and she was brilliant. And I sent her a draft of the book and just said, could you just read these chapters, which are very, fishy and sea creaturey and marine biology, and just make sure that I haven't just gone off on a tangent, and I'm not putting like freshwater fish into saltwater. And she gave me loads of really good ideas and feedback. And we had a little joke, because I had conger eels, and spelt as in they're doing the conga. And she was like, Emma, come on, you could have Googled that. But yeah, there's lots of things. And I find that research isn't, I'm going to spend a day at the library, I'm going to buy a book, and I'm going to, you know, head down, read the whole book, and then I'll be a fountain of all information. It's little bits that come up here and there. It's even little turns of phrase that you think, oh, I've always said that, but I don't know if I've got it right, or I don't know if it means what I think it means. So I find that every few hundred words I'm researching just to make sure that my language is right and that there isn't a better way of phrasing something. I'm just constantly on Google, just making sure that what I'm writing makes sense, and there isn't a better way of putting things. So yeah, it's just part of the process.
So you were still researching as you were writing and just checking up on things?
Yeah, and editing as well. While I was editing, I was going, oh, I wonder, I've made up a word, I wonder if it's got an actual meaning.
Worth checking.
I better Google that.
Yeah. I love the idea of conger eels doing the actual conger though. That could be a picture book or something, couldn't it?
Yeah, although they're really ugly, so I might scare the children.
Maybe not then, maybe not. So I love all the names that you came up with for the characters, like Martha Dag. Have I said that right? Martha Dag, and Finlow as well. Finlow?
Yeah,
Finlow. And there's of course Duna, which we learn more about, and which is a place, isn't it? And Dearmad, which is the whole curse of the Dearmad. So how did you come up with those different names for characters and the places?
Well, a lot of it is because my family is so well, my husband's from the Isle of Man and my granddad was from the Isle of Man too. It's a lot of it is based on kind of Manx heritage and Celtic ideas and language, and so I'd taken place names that I knew and kind of played with them. So Port Kipnish, which is the town where the family live, that's based on various Manx names that I've kind of put together. Duna is quite a Manx sounding word,
right?
And Dearmad was that's something that I did a little bit of research into to kind of find out what some Celtic or Irish or Manx words I could use to connect to memory.
Oh, okay.
And Dearmad means forget in Irish.
Right.
So yeah, lots of the names as well are Manx names that I've kind of picked up, like Finlow, Goldie. So yeah, it's all informed by that part of the world, kind of around the Irish Sea.
Oh, that's lovely. That's really interesting. And so I've mentioned my favourite character. Do you have a favourite character? Somebody that you identify with the most?
Nell.
Me too.
I love Nell.
I love Nell.
The book was it was originally called she used to be called Mabel.
Oh, okay.
And the book was called Mabel in the Mouth of the Cave, and it was all going to be about Mabel's journey, and the mouth of the cave kind of playing on the idea of Jonah in the mouth of the whale. And I really loved the name Mabel, and I had a relative who I never got to meet called Mabel, so I really loved that name. But then the name Mabel started popping up everywhere, and my editor said Mabel and Marnie are too similar because there's a character called Marnie as well. You're going to have to change one of them because it's confusing to the reader. So I thought, well, now's the time. Mabel kind of lived with me for a while, but then I changed it to Nell, and it feels like a really strong name, and she's a really strong character. And it was all about Nell to begin with, but then there was so much from the other character's point of view that I had to kind of spread it out a bit. But I love the way that she's kind of, she's an unsung hero at the start. She doesn't know her strengths, and she's so jealous of the Gillies, and she's angry, and she doesn't really like Connor, her brother's best friend, and she has complicated relationships in the book, and I quite like that because nothing's black and white in real life either. I think children always have those friendships that are a little bit harder to navigate, and that's her relationship with Connor, and that she finds her own gift and that it's really complicated for her to work out, but she really perseveres and she's really strong. I think she's a really interesting character. But I think if there were to be another Dearmad book, which there is talk about, but there's nothing firm yet, I think I'd have to give a bit more attention to Connor, because Connor, who is also a gilly, has a really difficult time in this book. He's quite a weak. He's got quite a weak body, and he's quite a nervous kind of character. But he really needs to come into his own. And I think and I've talked to Tiny Tree about it, and we all want Connor to do well at the end.
Oh,
So,
that would be good, because that scene, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but when in the cave and what's happening to him, I just found that really harrowing, and I felt it made my skin crawl. And I felt so awful for him, and I could sense that he felt like he'd let himself down, and he'd let everybody down, and you know, towards the end, even the illustration right at the end, everybody's really happy apart from poor Connor. You can see that he's got a lot on his mind still. So I was going to ask you about a sequel. So it would be really lovely to see him kind of come into his own a little bit, and
that's the plan. If there is another one, we want to bring out Connor's strengths more.
And because him and Nell kind of started finding their footing towards the end, didn't they? Because they had a bit of a sort of rocky relationship. So yeah, that would be that's what we want to see, definitely, in the sequel. That would be lovely. That would be brilliant. So well, I've just told you the hardest scene I've found to read. What was the hardest scene to write?
I find exposition really difficult, because as a writer you want to inform the reader and you want to give backstory, but you don't want to just information dump. But you've got a whole world in your head, and you've got to make sure that the reader has that world as well. So I find exposition really hard to write when you're trying to give background or describe a location, because it's important to like the next part of the story. But I find it really difficult to do that in a way that doesn't feel like, oh, it's just a load of backstory now, and making it really present in the action. So the bits that I had to rework the most were bits where I was explaining what's going on. But that's just a technical point as a writer. Emotionally, I found writing about Nell, at the beginning of the story we find out why Nell is the way she is, and an example from her younger childhood, where she's so jealous of her brother for having gills and being a gilly that she wants to be just like him. So she learns to dive at a really young age, like at 7 she gets her scuba gear. And I found it really hard to write that, because I wanted her to be really strong but also show that she was really vulnerable. And I kept rewriting it and changing it, and in the end I settled on the fact that it would all be kind of be pieced together in moments of memory. But that's the chapter I enjoy most reading as well. So I wanted to do her justice and her backstory justice, and not just kind of info dump.
Well, you definitely achieved that, because like I said, she's my favourite character, and I was so into her journey. And as I said, but it was surprising when I was reading it and it started going that way, and I was like, oh my goodness, you know, this is so clever. So you did a brilliant job with it. It was really fantastic. As I said, I love Nell. It's funny sometimes those really difficult scenes that to write end up being your favourite scene. Sometimes it's maybe just because you sort of pouring your heart and soul into it, so you end up having a bit of a connection to it.
I think that's right. And there's a scene later on that is exactly like that. I found it really hard to write, but I feel a real connection with it when they meet their granddad Finlow, and he's trying to teach them a life lesson, and they don't really get it. But then they turn it into a conversation about spaghetti bolognese, and it kind of, the penny drops.
Yes.
But that happened because it sounded a bit preachy the way I first wrote it. like he's wise and he's informing them. And I thought children don't like to be talked to like that. So I kind of reeled it back and made it a conversation between the two children instead. And that was really hard to write because their conversation, because Percy by that point, I don't want to give any spoilers, but he's lost a lot of his memory. And Nell's really fed up.
Yeah.
And they've got this, and they're not at the end of their journey yet, and there's a big challenge, and they don't know if they're going to get home, and it's all a nightmare. But I wanted it to be kind of a fun conversation and not too preachy. But then it's one of my favourite to read. It must have taken me 3 days to rewrite that chapter.
Gosh. It's another great chapter,
just kept going over it over and over.
Yeah, because that's another step on their journey, isn't it? It's I like that scene as well. I thought it was really clever with the cooking and spaghetti bolognese analogy. So yeah, that worked for me definitely. So is there anything that's going through this whole process, anything about the publishing industry that surprised you or caught you off guard?
The time. Like, it takes so long, and COVID didn't help.
No.
Well, it helped in a way because I think I was in a rush to get everything done, and I had some really good conversations with Tiny Tree about taking lockdown as a chance to go back and think again about the edits, and actually having more time to edit was great because I worked really closely with an amazing editor. And I felt like I really got into the bones of the book, and I might not have done that if I hadn't have, if that kind of break in publishing. Well, it wasn't a break in publishing. I feel so sorry for those people whose books came out during that first lockdown. But luckily for me, Tiny Tree said, "You're a debut author. We need you to shine. Let's wait." But yeah, it takes so long. Like, I started writing this when my children were 2.5, and they've just had their 8th birthday.
Oh wow, yeah. It must be difficult. I know I find it difficult when people say, "So when you did this bit, what was what was your motivation there? Or how did you?" And you think, "I can't remember writing that. Can't. It's so long ago.
I know.
So long ago." But that was my answer as well. I was said the time, just the amount of time that it all takes. It's amazing, really.
Yeah.
So what does publishing success look like for you then?
I think it's got to be about the readers, and in children's publishing about the child readers, because it's lovely when an adult gives you great feedback, and it brightens up your day. But I'm just really looking forward to seeing what the children think of it. Yeah. My children have started having it as their bedtime book while we've been on holiday, because I forgot the one we were reading at home. and I only had a copy of Dearmad with me. And they said, well, they'd been waiting. They wanted the final copy. They didn't want me to read it off, my laptop or even off the Ark. And they're really enjoying it.
Aww.
And each chapter, I've tried to make it so that each chapter's kind of not necessarily a cliffhanger, but leads you on to the next. Like, something is said at the end of the chapter to make you want to go on to the next one.
Oh yeah.
Really...
I found that with I was just racing. I was like racing through and thinking, right, I'll end it. I'll finish at this chapter, and then I'm like, no, I need to carry on.
Yeah.
And that's the best feeling reading a book, and it must be. I mean, reading it with your children, it must be just wonderful.
I think. Well, they say they're enjoying it, and they're asking me lots of questions. I'm like, just wait, it will become clear. Just wait. So yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it, reading it with them, but I think they'd always say that they enjoyed it because they're kind.
Oh,
so I'm waiting till I meet a child who is willing to tell me the truth.
Well, I'm sure you're going to get lots of brilliant feedback about it, because I really enjoyed it, and I can see children just absolutely loving it and falling in love with all those characters. And the idea of a ghillie, I've got it here, and I mean, I said to you, didn't I? I was hooked from the illustration on the front there with the basic features of a ghillie. I was just like, this is just so cool.
The illustrator is amazing.
Oh,
She's so she's like, if I said, oh, I think it might be nice to have a map, and she said okay, and she went away and did a map, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, I love a map. I love a map in a book. And at the beginning of every chapter, there's an illustration, isn't there? And it just gives you a sense of what's coming. And you're just like, oh no, Connor looks sad. Oh dear, what's going to happen? Oh dear. So you said you left your book at home on holiday. What else are you reading at the moment?
So I always have a few books on the go. I always have a book for me that is a children's book, as kind of, because I like to read children's books because I enjoy them, but also because I want to know what's out there and what other authors are doing. And then a book that I'm reading with the children, and then they have the books that they read to themselves. So at home, I'm reading Millions with them, which is a little bit old for them, but I'm having to explain a lot to them, but they're really enjoying it. So yeah, Millions by Frank Cottrell Boyce. It's a classic, and it's one of the books that I read and thought, oh, I'd like to do this. So it's nice reading that with them. They're really big fans of Pamela Bouchard as well. So we've had a lot of Pamela Bouchard, but recently I've thought, well, I'm going to push them, maybe something a little bit older. So that's what we've got on the go at home. And then I'm reading Sweet Sorrow by David Nichols, which is a nice summer book to read. But the children's book that I've got on the go for me is Jamie Russell's Skywake, because I'm going to be book chaining with him.
Nicely done.
Yeah, in a couple of weeks. And I've got to say, I've got the physical copy, but I thought, oh, I'm going on holiday, I'm going to get the audio book so that I can listen to it in the car and stuff, and the kids are enjoying it too. So
brilliant.
I'm loving it. It's really good, really good.
Well, that actually, can you believe we've been talking for 30 minutes?
Well, there we go.
That's the end, and that is perfect to end on, because you're talking to Jamie on the 26th, aren't you? So so that will be, I'll look forward to seeing that, because I've started reading that book as well. So so that is all from us. Thank you so much, Emma.
And thank you, George. And can I just say also, congratulations for yesterday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes,
I'm looking forward to reading it.
Oh, good. Wait until Halloween. Read it at Halloween. It's a good autumn book to read, because it's got a Halloween countdown in it. But thank you for that. That's lovely. Yeah. So we'll sign off now, and we're going to head over to Zoom now and just carry on chatting a bit. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. That was lovely just chatting to you. It went so quickly. It just yeah, I mean, I'd love to carry on talking all night about, I mean, especially if there's going to be a sequel. I'm very excited about that. So we're just going to go through these quick fire questions, which I sent for you. So hopefully you've got your answers ready, and then that's us. And it's just been so lovely chatting to you. And thank you for taking the time in your holiday as well.
No, thank you for doing it as well, because you must be exhausted after launching yesterday.
Well, I have had a few disco naps today, because I have been a little bit jaded. But my husband was wonderful this morning, and he dealt with the children, and then my sister took my eldest out for the day, so I've had a bit of a day to recover. So I'm feeling fine, and it's been lovely. So yeah, felt much fresher than I did this morning. So right, so as a writer, what would you choose as your mascot or avatar or spirit animal?
Had real trouble with this one, Georgia. I said red panda. But my daughter said peregrine falcon. And my husband said a lynx. So I think they have more faith in me being a strong, courageous, warrior animal, whereas I'm quite like the idea of being a cuddly panda that lives in the trees.
Oh, well, that sounds like a nice life to lead, really, doesn't it? Maybe you could amalgamate all three of those animals and create some kind of...
I think that should be done.
Yeah, you could be friends with the conger eel.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So if you could only eat one meal and drink one drink for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Well, it's it's not my favourite meal, but it's probably the one that I could have. I could have it every night and not be bored of it. And that's chicken broth. We do it with barley. It's really, really good, and it feels like it's doing you good. So it'd have to be the chicken broth, and especially if it's with a nice chunk of lovely bread and thick butter.
Yeah, lovely,
Yeah.
lovely.
And the drink, I said tea. My husband said, no, you take rosé. And my daughter said, it's only sensible to have water, Mum.
Well,
so
she's right, isn't she?
I think I'd have to go with water.
Yeah. And Marvel or DC?
I'm not a huge superhero. Well, I like them. I like the movies, and I like the comics. But I'd have to go DC because Teen Titans is on a loop in our house. I feel like they're part of the family. So it's got to be DC.
That's fair enough. And Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse?
Bugs Bunny without a question. He's edgy.
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse is too.
He's a bit sweet,
vanilla.
isn't he? Yeah. Yeah. I went Bugs as well. I thought he'd be more fun to hang out with. And so, well, you're not on a desert island, are you? I don't think. But what 3 books would you take with you to a desert island?
Well, it's hard. I just think back to the books that I enjoyed the most in my life would be when I was doing my degree, because I got my degree in English literature. And when I think back to them, there's a theme, and they're all really dark, and probably not the best thing to take to a desert island
when you're on your own.
Well, I came up with Crime and Punishment, Slaughterhouse-5, and I thought, right, okay, I need something to lift me. So I think those 2, and Sense and Sensibility, because I could read that once a month for the rest of my life and still enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. That balances out the dark, doesn't it? Yeah.
It does balance out the Crime and Punishment. But there's so much in those dark books. There's layers and so many ideas that you can just dig for ages, and new ideas pop out at you every time you read them. So there should probably be a children's book. If I was to take a children's book, I think I'd take a collection of poetry for children.
Oh yeah, I love children's poetry.
Yeah, something, I don't know, Michael Rosen or Shel Silverstein, something nice and light.
Yeah, lovely. You can dip in and out of it then, can't you?
Yeah.
And one final question: what Christmas book recommendation could you give?
There's a book that is very simple and but beautifully done, and it's by Justine Garda, and it's the Christmas Mystery. My children haven't read it with my children yet, but the idea is that you read a chapter of every day of Advent.
That's a lovely idea.
Yeah, and it's quite otherworldly. It feels quite meditative reading it. It's a lovely book. But there was another one out last year, or was it the year before? Winston Delivered Christmas. Can't remember who it's by. Alex. Can't remember. But that's a great one, because that's another one where you read a chapter every night up to Christmas, and there are little in between each chapter. There's like a craft idea that you could do for Christmas.
That's handy. Yeah,
really lovely. I recommend that for younger children.
Oh, lovely. Okay, well, I'll remember those as well. So that's the end of our Zoom chat and our quickfire questions. So thank you so much for joining in with the Book Chain Project, and I hope you enjoy chatting to Jamie as much as I've enjoyed chatting to you. It's been so lovely.
Thank you.
And you can get back to your holiday now.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've enjoyed it. Thanks for doing that, Georgia.
Lovely. No worries. All right. Lovely to chat. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you, Emma. Bye.
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 Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Georgia. Next week, Emma Mylrea will be interviewing Jamie Russell. I look forward to seeing you then. Bye.